Hello, everybody. This is Menopause Taylor bringing you the state of menopause in the world today. And I've come back to you to make sense of all things pertaining to menopause. I'm Menopause Taylor, and that's what I do. If you heard the last video podcast, you know that I presented all the research studies that have gotten us to where we are today with regard to HRT and heart attacks. And you saw that research studies can be confusing. And even more confusing than the research studies themselves are the reactions people have to them. In the case of studies on HRT and heart attacks, the results of only an occasional study are revealed to the public. For every study about which you hear something, there are hundreds of others about which you hear nothing. So you really only get a tiny piece of the big picture. And you don't hear about studies from your doctor or from the researchers themselves. You hear about them from the media. That's unfortunate because the media have no background in medicine. And sometimes the way in which the public information is revealed may or may not be accurate in terms of the details of the actual study. This is precisely what has occurred with regard to studies on HRT and heart attacks, and it has caused great confusion for women, fear of litigation for physicians, and withholding of HRT for menopause as a result of both. So this podcast is called Why All the Confusion About HRT and Heart Attacks, and my goal is to erase the confusion. There are just too many people perpetuating the confusion, and there just aren't enough erasing it. And that's why it's a good thing that you're paying attention to this podcast. So in the last podcast, what I did was I walked you through the series of research studies that have shaped our current understanding of the effect of HRT on your heart. And the bottom line is that there was a study called The bottom line is that it goes back to history. Heart attacks in women didn't even occur until after postmenopause, regardless of their age at the time, back in the late 1800s and early 1900s. But then, from the mid-1900s until the early 1990s, hormone replacement was routine, and women who received hormone replacement had a much lower risk of heart attack. So this is when research began to discover why this was the case. Then the EPAT study in 1998 showed that HRT prevents atherosclerosis. After that, the PEPI study from 1998 to 2000 showed that HRT improves lipids and blood pressure. Next, the ERA study showed that HRT cannot reverse atherosclerosis, and that was followed by both the HERS and the WellHeart studies showing that HRT cannot prevent heart attack in women who already have atherosclerosis. And that is what set the stage for the infamous WHI, which erroneously concluded that HRT caused heart attacks. But after years of reanalyzing the data, it became obvious that early use of HRT did prevent heart attacks, while late use of HRT could cause heart attacks. And because this one study was misreported initially, indicating that HRT causes heart attacks, everybody reacted strongly and discontinued use of HRT. And even though there has been reanalysis that shows the initial reports were all wrong, you never got that information. The vast majority of women have only heard about the WHI study. And unfortunately, all they ever heard about it was the erroneous initial reports from the media. That's why I talk about this. Now, in addition to all the stuff you do hear or don't hear about research, if you request HRT from your doctor in your annual 10-minute appointment, he or she will usually respond with a quick, "You know about the risk of heart attack, don't you?" They don't have time to really discuss it, and yet they feel obligated to warn you of the risks. But they don't feel a need to tell you of the benefits. You see, all doctors swear to do no harm when they become doctors. And ironically, The perception is that you do less harm by doing nothing, or in this case, prescribing nothing, than by doing something, or in this case, informing you of all the pros and cons and giving you the prescription. And even if your doctor tells you that your benefits outweigh your risks with regard to HRT and heart attacks, when you open the package of HRT, you find that huge, massive, thick insert that's in every package of hormones. And it scares you to death because it says that HRT causes heart attacks. And that confuses you even more. So the confusion about HRT and heart attacks derives from various sources. First, everybody believed that HRT prevented heart attacks. Then, everyone believed that HRT caused heart attacks. Your doctor says HRT prevents heart attacks. And the package insert says HRT causes heart attacks. All the while, you see women having heart attacks once they become postmenopausal, but you don't know if they were taking HRT or avoiding HRT. And you're left wondering why. Is there so much conflicting information? Which is it? Does HRT prevent heart attacks or does it cause heart attacks? That's what I'm going to clear up for you right now. You know how some things depend on context? Last week I used an example of a marble on a surface, and I said if you want to know if a marble rolls on a surface, it depends on the context. If the surface is flat, the marble does not roll. If the surface is slanted, it does. So the context is something that is absolutely critical to the outcome, but is not an apparent part of the question. That's exactly what has caused the confusion about HRT and heart attacks. It all depends on context. Another way to say this is that the answers to your questions are not always as simple as you want to make them. In law, the answer to every question is it depends. Everything depends on the situation. But unfortunately, you live in a world of sound bites. You hear little bits of information here and there and everywhere, but you never get the whole story. It's as if people don't have time to hear the whole story, and people telling the story don't have time to tell the whole story. Everybody wants the 30-second version of the story. Or maybe it's an attention deficit problem. As a whole, the human attention span has gotten much, much shorter. And that is fine for some things, but it's not fine for understanding HRT and heart attacks. Sometimes you just have to hear the whole story. That's why I take the time to make my videos, do these podcasts, teach you everything I can. And nothing I do is in a 5-minute version because I give you the whole story. So here's the whole story on HRT and heart attacks. And surprisingly, I'm going to make it short to accommodate our soundbite 30-second attention deficit world. It's all about the context. The answer to the question, does HRT prevent heart attacks or cause heart attacks, depends on whether you're early in your postmenopause or late in your postmenopause. If you're early in your postmenopause and you haven't gone without estrogen long enough for your arteries to have hardened, then HRT prevents that hardening from occurring and prevents a heart attack. If you're in your early postmenopause, your arteries are still soft and supple, and estrogen keeps them soft and supple, and that reduces your risk for heart attack. But if you're in your late postmenopause and your arteries are already hard, then estrogen can't do anything to make them soft and supple again. And in that context, it can even hurt you because your arteries just aren't used to estrogen anymore. Sometimes something that used to be beneficial becomes risky over time. Here's an analogy. Let's say you used to be a runner, and back then running was easy, pleasant, and beneficial to your health. But if you then undergo a lot of aging and acquire some of the diseases of aging, running becomes more risky than beneficial. So running was good for you at one point in time, but later it became bad for you. Running hasn't changed. It's what it always was. You're what's changed, and what's changed you is aging. That's how it works with estrogen and heart attacks. This is called the timing hypothesis. The timing hypothesis is what the estrogen window of opportunity is all about. If you begin taking estrogen in the first 5 to 10 years of your postmenopause, before your arteries have become too hard, it can prevent a heart attack. But if you don't take estrogen in the first 5 to 10 years of your postmenopause, your arteries become too hard, and taking estrogen can actually cause a heart attack in some women. So while it may sound like there's conflicting information, or that there are different opinions, or that there is confusion on the matter, there really isn't. It's just that you only heard part of the story. If you only heard about the WHI and no other studies, you've only heard part of the study. If you only heard the early reports of the WHI and never heard the updates of all the reanalysis, you only heard part of the story. If the only thing your doctor said to you when you requested HRT was, "You know about the risks of heart attack, don't you?" you only heard part of the story. And if you only saw the package insert for your HRT product and all its warnings about heart attack, you only heard part of the story. You deserve the whole story. And that's why I teach like this. When it comes to HRT and heart attacks, the benefits and risks all have to do with the context. In the last podcast, I dwelled on 3 terms that are absolutely critical to your understanding of the effect of HRT on heart attacks. I'm going to reiterate them here. They are the words prevent, cause, and treat. Prevent means that you inhibit the disease from developing in the first place. It pertains to young, healthy women who have no heart disease at all. Cause means that you take something that begins the process of disease development. It pertains to starting the disease process or making the situation worse. Treat means that you take something to reverse a disease process. It pertains to improving the disease process and making it less severe. These 3 terms are all about timing. And that's exactly what the effect of HRT on heart attacks is all about. Timing. So the bottom line is that HRT can prevent a heart attack if you start it early in your postmenopause. And the farther you get from your early postmenopause, the more likely it is that starting HRT will cause a heart attack. And please focus on the word start. Once you're on HRT, it will continue to prevent a heart attack as long as you continue taking it. And there's no rule about how long you can take it. If you want to take it for the rest of your life, you can. There's no rule on how long you can take it. Some doctors impose artificial rules, but there are no rules. So I hope this has served to clear up the confusion, and it should make perfect sense. If it doesn't make sense, consider scheduling a consultation with me at menopausetailor.me, because I will not only teach you all the facts, but I will tailor everything to you and your particular situation. I will never shortchange you. I will never, give you a quick answer to something when in fact I can tailor it all to you and make it very pertinent to your reality. So I love doing these podcasts. I love teaching in every manner. I hope you go to my website, which is menopausetailor.me. If you do, what you're going to find is that I have all kinds